We're going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. Thank you all so much for being here. Would you please call the roll?
Inglesby,
Here.
Mitchell,
Here.
Rizzo,
Present.
Heiser, Zuniga, Harris,
Here.
Parsley,
Here.
Tobias, Cohen.
Okay, we do have a quorum. So our next item is number 2, approval of the minutes. If you would take a moment, if you haven't already, and I'll entertain a motion to approve. Or not?
So moved.
Okay. There's a motion and a second. Are there any discussion? Is there any questions? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, next is citizen comment period. Are there any citizens that would like to speak? Anyone signed up? Okay. If not, we'll move on to item 4, reports and presentation. Receive a report, hold a discussion, and provide staff direction on the 30% final design on the roundabouts on Kohlers Crossing at Cromwell, Benner, and Sanders, and Mr. Barber.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and board members. Leon Barber, City Engineer. This is just a brief summary of what's happened on this project since we started back in 2022. This is what the current 30% layout looks like. We did make a few changes to it. There's some minor alignments that we did to the 3 roundabouts. The cost increased, unfortunately, in these projects. We also, if you remember, we have the 3 roundabouts, but we also have the areas are between those roundabouts starting from 2770 to 1626. There was a slight reduction in the property that we needed for the construction of the 3 roundabouts. This is a big item. This is the tunnel. We were asked to look at the tunnel. The tunnel today is existing 10-foot by 8-foot tunnel. The problem with this tunnel is it doesn't apparently meet the requirements for bicyclists, so it's only 8 feet tall, and it's supposed to be 8'3", so that's a problem for bicyclists to being able to use that tunnel legally. The ramps that we designed for this particular project are about 400 feet in length. We used a 3% slope on these ramps. The estimated acquisition now has gone up to 0.67 acres if we move forward with this particular project. We'll probably have to take all of the lot on the southwest corner, and we'll have to take a good portion of the lot on the northwest corner. The total cost right now is at $6.5 million. This does not include design. I just want to point that out. It does include the construction cost and the right-of-way, but it does not include design. This is an important sheet that we need to look at, and hopefully I can explain the different items as we go through this. Let me start off with number 1. This is a retail road project. That 800 is the cost that we recently approved. That's got the construction cost. It also has about a 5% contingency in it, so that's pretty well set. Hopefully we won't need any more than what we assigned to that project. Item number 2, if you look at that middle column that on the right, that gold column, May 22, 24. I'm sorry, the estimated project cost. Look at the estimated project cost column. We're estimating about $5 million for the roundabout at Cromwell and Kohlers. On the number 3, we're estimating about $5.8 million for the roundabout at Benner and Kohlers. For the roundabout at Sanders and Kohlers, we're estimating $5.9 million. Just to let you know, the parking lot is estimated at $1.2 million. By the way, we're opening bids on that project Thursday. We'll see how that one comes in on our bids. I did forget to mention that on the number 1, we're going to start construction on June the 10th, just so that you'll know about that. But anyway, let me go back to number 5. So we do plan to open up bids Thursday. We'll see what those numbers come in. Hopefully we'll get some good bids from the contractors out there. If you add up those numbers from 1 through 5, that's about $26 million. If you notice at the top of the list of the chart there, we said 34.4 is what our maximum amount we have available based on the last projections that we have for TIRZ number 2. So once you get past 5, those are the items that we don't have the funding for if we stay with that 34.4 million. The parking garage is at around 10 million. The tunnel improvements are about 6.5 million. And the illumination, the overhead, the underground utility relocations, the road improvements, the paving, the stuff that's between the roundabouts, we're estimating at about $11.7 million. If we were moving forward with number 8, for example, what I would do is I would go ahead and break that into add alternates and see what the cost would be for the illumination, for the overhead to underground burial that we would need, sidewalks and paving. So I would break those into add alternates, and let's see what we can afford if we had some money available to do any of those items. So that's how I would set it up if I had to move forward with a contract on this. The total budget we're estimating we would need would be almost $3 million. And again, just to remind you, we're at 34.4 on the maximum. So today we're asking the board to help give us some direction as to what you would like to see done with this particular project. The next item on the agenda is number 2. This is the contract that's we're hoping to award to the consultant to actually do the design. And when we get to that one, I'll show you that it does not include money for the design of the tunnel, but it includes for design of everything from 2770 to 1626, including the roundabouts, including the paving, including the illumination, including any work that we need to do between the roundabouts. Now, questions?
I would just say from a staff recommendation, obviously the tunnel is something that we've talked about a number of times with this board. It's been something we've looked at. We just feel like it's not very feasible from a cost perspective, or if you look at the ramps that were drawn out here, it's very unusual design with having to have that many kind of chargebacks and changes with the grades that are over there. So we wouldn't recommend moving forward with that. Certainly wanted to have some conversation about it today. If the board felt differently about it, we could perhaps look at it again, but we wanted to show you kind of what that might look like and some of the problems that we had with that design. And then I think the other thing I wanted to get from the board was just the priority on the overall projects. I think doing all 3 roundabouts has clearly been something that you've been focused on. And Leon, if you don't mind going back to that other chart. And then we had, of course, the parking lot, which we're hoping to get bids on, I believe, later this week and bring back a contract to you on that in the near future. And the parking garage itself is something that I know has been a priority as well. So if those are the things that are priorities for the board, then we can bring those back to you as those kind of matriculate forward and we have better cost estimates and designs on each one of those. But I wanted to mention to you, just kind of get out on the table about the tunnel itself. It's an interesting idea, and it just was very costly, difficult to do.
I was just going to ask Mayor and council members, I know that Mr. Barbara said that he would maybe jump down to item number 8 and, maybe pick and choose some of those. And I was thinking about the parking garage. I know we've talked about that in the past, and it is an important project. I know it would put us over the 34.4, but just kind of wanted to get some feedback from y'all to see what y'all thought about that. And, would there be any additional funds available to move forward with that?
I am really in favor. I think that parking garage will bring a lot of benefit to that whole area. And although I see that it's in the priority list as number 6, I think that will be probably one of priority number 1, because that would definitely help the rest of the retail come faster, which will benefit the TIRZ overall.
Well, so you're saying when you think a parking garage, where? That's the question. Where would we put one? You're just saying in the retail district, but they don't have any development plans right now. It's not even in their phasing. So if we started in year 1 pursuing a parking garage in the interior area, it would stand just alone until the project kicked off.
Now, do you think that might help the retail to come around it?
Well,
move forward?
I've felt that the best way to do a parking garage is in tandem with some other type of development project. So, for example, if we pursued a Sportsplex project, that northern end is where the Hotel Convention Center site would go. And there's a really good argument to be made because if you have a big regional sportsplex, it requires a lot of parking and it can eat up a huge chunk of your green space. And so if we went out, maybe we could find funding for it there through a bond proposition to the voters. And so that any project would be, parking lot averse. And if the voters supported it, that would be a way to get that northern acre funded. I think if we tried to prioritize, the reason the parking garage is low is not because of what you said. What you say is exactly right. It's just they're not doing the mixed-use vertical developments on the retail strip where the parking garage needs to go. The only real demand right now is in the sportsplex area, and that's if that project actually moves forward. I do think the roundabouts create a huge, so if you take out, if we took the parking garage off of this and said, we're gonna fund that through a public-private partnership or through a different source, and then you take the tunnel improvements, that's 13 million off. The parking lot, 1 million, that's cash funded. And the 8.144 million, that's already bonds issued. They break ground next week, I believe.
June 10th.
Is that right?
June 10th.
June 10th is when they break ground on that. So that's already funded. So really, we can come back down to 4 plus 4 plus 6 is the 3 roundabout projects. And then number 8 is the illumination. And you can add those projects up and try to determine maybe a phasing schedule for how we would deliver that. And I do think we have the cash flows sufficient, depending on how we do things, to get close to funding all of those projects with TIRZ revenue-backed city CO bonds, just like the retail roads agreement.
I have a question about number 8. So if we were to, under illumination, overhead to the underground utilities and other road improvements, are we planning on having any pedestrian crossing?
We'll have pedestrian crossings at the roundabouts for sure. And one of the things I think, and the consultant is here, but my understanding is that we're supposed to be installing these RRFBs, rectangular rapid flashing beacons, to help with the pedestrians get across the street. It's the ones where you just push the button and it starts flashing, to help you get across the road.
So the road itself starts flashing, there's lights up on the road, and they illuminate while somebody's walking by, or they'll have them overhead, is what I've seen in those instances. So we can go either or, right, Leon? Either the ones on the roadway or the ones overhead, correct?
I think the ones that overhead are called, remind me, Steve, that's another acronym,
I like the ones that are on the roadway.
Hawkeye?
because
Yeah, they're
you're not
those-
running wires, and it's less of a chance of somebody, some construction truck coming and taking them out, right? So I like the ones that are on the roadway.
So there will be a pedestrian by Cromwell and Kohlers, correct?
Cromwell,
That
Benner,
will
and
just
Sanders will have
basically
those.
put you
Can you go
from,
back to that on the slide so we can see what?
from
while she's
Cromwell
talking?
to the Heroes Memorial, because that's a big pedestrian, like I cross that all the time at the faith of God to not get killed, so, I'm not lying. So,
We believe you.
Yeah, but if you'll notice, there's a little bit of a curve as you enter these roundabouts. That's the intent, of course, is to slow people down going through those roundabouts. And then the intent is also to plan to put these rectangular rapid flashing beacons in those areas so we can help pedestrians get across the road. The Hawks are the other systems that I'm thinking about. The Hawks are fairly expensive. They're around 200,000, something like that. And these things are not that expensive, so that's the savings there.
So that
But
you
they're,
have
they're
the,
functional. They work.
you have the crosswalks marked on here, right? Is that
Pardon?
what I'm seeing?
Yes, and we do have crosswalks marked on this.
So Mayor, if we did what you said and went, with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, moved 6 and 7 down, but moved 8 up, there would be enough money to fund everything, wouldn't there?
I think close. It's going to depend on some prioritization decisions of this board as well as other areas. But if, the real question, so what's the next item before us is to fund the 30% design of basically what you see here. Is that correct?
This is a 30%. The next thing you will fund will be the full design
So
and
what's
project
on,
administration.
on our agenda tonight is to fund this to 30% design. It's a big commitment for us to make.
100%.
It is.
The 30%
So it
has
is
already been
30%
paid.
designed, you're
Yes,
saying
yes.
this takes us to 100%?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so even bigger commitment, right? So we're going all the way, we need to consider this as a priority.
I see.
There's been there've been discussions about whether we wanted to pursue phasing these in, one at a time, or doing them all at the same time. And I've been on the side of, I really believe we should do them all at the same time, even though it's gonna be very difficult. Basically, all of Kohlers will be torn up for a couple of years probably, but when it's over, it's a transformational project. If you do them one at a time, that's like a decade of the road being under construction. So we can achieve getting there or close to there if we prioritize it, but it does mean we have to be realistic that the TIRZ revenue-backed CO bond format that we're using for this and the retail roads is not gonna be available for a parking garage for a few more years.
Sure. And what is the price for, or cost for 100% design? We're at 30 already, so to take us to 100%, what does that cost? I guess I didn't see that. And
That's
so-
the next item,
Yeah,
2.4 million.
Okay,
2.4.
That's
2.5.
final
So then that would
design.
take us, yeah, a little over.
And then we'd be going to bid and construction right after that, if we had the
Yes.
capacity.
That's correct.
Yeah.
But just to let the board know, we do have another project that's going to be tearing up Kohlers. It's a large transmission main that'll be starting at 1626 up to about Benner. We're going to put a new water line in there to feed that particular water site. So that'll hopefully be starting within a year. So it's going to be torn up for quite a while.
Yes.
The other thing about starting them all three at the same time is that we minimize the cost, because each one will be more expensive the longer you wait.
That's right.
Yes.
So we'll have the same cost for all three, or depending on the design of each one and easement, but I think that that's a really wise
good
thing to
point.
do. Even though 2 years of a whole street being torn up in my neighborhood is
Yeah, no,
problematic, but it's
I drive
better
it every
than 10
day.
years.
Yeah.
You'll get public comment.
Well, and also just as an update, so June 10th is when the retail road, so if you look on the right of the screen, that roundabout that we're proposing, that's not funded, but everything north of that's about to break ground. The Sprouts, I think, is itself the GBT project plus that 20,000 square feet or 18,000 square
Yeah,
feet of
18.
retail. That's all about to break ground, I think, in July. And then the parking garage, you'll be bringing at a future meeting here in just a month or two for construction, I would assume, right?
As soon as possible. As soon as we confirm all the numbers, let's get some good bids in, confirm all the numbers. We're going to bring that to you as quickly as we can so we can get the contractor started.
For
Do
the
you have a
parking
sense
lot,
of-
Mayor, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Did I say garage?
You said garage.
I meant
Par-
parking.
par-
Yes.
Parking
park-
lot.
I was
Parking
like,
lot.
what?
Parking
Yes,
lot,
sorry.
yes, sir. I
I'm
just wanted to be,
thinking-
I just
I'm
want to
thinking
be
about the
clear
next
about that.
sentence sometimes
We hope
a
to get the
little
bids
too fast.
in this week, and then we'll be able to bring it back to you very
So
quickly.
in a month for the parking lot, you think?
Hope sooner than that.
Yeah.
If
We
can
want to have
get
it
the
open
meeting
by
set up.
October.
So the point is, over the course of this summer, we're about to see a lot of development on the north side of Kohlers. And that's gonna really put the pressure on Kohlers itself. So I'm glad that we're to this point. I just hope we will stay the course.
Well, with Marketplace coming in, hopefully that can get done pretty quickly, and that'll be another artery through that area, so hopefully Marketplace will be the shining light there. And especially because that's a new road, so you're not blocking traffic off, so that road, I think, could be developed a lot quicker than what we're thinking, so, hopefully.
I think for us today was making sure we had agreement on the tunnel and making sure you guys were comfortable with how we were approaching that issue. And then, as the mayor mentioned, getting us to 100% plans to start that process. I think these other decisions, you don't necessarily have to make all of those today. We can bring you back options and show you other alternatives. But I do like Leon's idea about some add alternates that we could show on the bids. Once we get the final design, then we could kind of pick and choose something that made sense at that time when we have all the cost information together.
I'm not entirely clear on what decision we've made about the tunnel.
If it wouldn't
Okay.
work. It just doesn't work.
So,
So we need to just do away with even talking about it. But we need to make sure that we're designing for the pedestrian crosses at max
Right.
design levels for those pedestrians.
Yep.
Which it looks like we are, because it's one thing to have a flashing yellow light slow down. It's another thing to have forced delineators in the way that these roundabouts are designed. You have to slow down. The whole way that you approach it causes you to slow down. And it makes it very safe for pedestrians if it's done right. And these look good to me. I mean, I'm not an engineer though.
thank you.
So there's no action, but direction.
No action on this one, but we've got direction.
I hope you,
So just for the record, I think it's clear to not proceed with the tunnel, and then when we go to the next item, then you would be approving a contract to design it without the tunnel.
And
Okay.
we're not going to the parking garage at this point.
correct.
No, ma'am, and that's not in front of you.
Okay, so we're moving on to item number 5. We're done with 3, Lee?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so item number 5, consider impossible action, consider approval of task order number 2 with American Structurepoint Inc. in the amount of $2,451,013.38 for finalizing design, right-of-way services, and construction support for the roundabouts on Kohlers Crossing at Cromwell, Benner, and Sanders. Mr. Barba.
Again, you've seen this before. This is our summary for the projects, and you've seen this already. Option 1 is to approve task order number 2 to American Structurepoint in the amount of $2+ million for finalizing design, right-of-way services, construction support for the Kohlers Crossing roundabouts. This option would allow finalizing design for all items excluding the pedestrian tunnel. The total cost of the TIRZ 2 projects is $50.43, and the financial forecast indicates only $34.4 million is available. We may need to identify additional funding sources later, but we'll see when that happens. Option number 2 is do not approve task order number 2 and direct staff to revise scope of work and receive a new contract. And staff is recommending option number 1. And again, this is for the complete design from 2770 to 1626, includes the roundabouts, includes sidewalks, includes illumination, includes sidewalks, pavement repair, the whole gamut of the project from one end to the other, includes complete design.
Okay, any questions?
I do. What's the contingency for this?
Pardon?
The contingency amount, is it like 10% or, and is it included?
Not on this contract, but typically in construction, it's either 5 to 10, depending on how big of a construction project it is. But we did have contingencies in our estimates, but then sometimes things don't work out the way we wanted them to.
So for the design, it's already included?
There's no contingency on the
Okay,
design.
that's just the price for the
That's
whole
just the
thing?
price, yes,
Okay.
Yeah, contingency is on the bill when you're
Okay.
building it, in case there's a rising cost of material, unforeseen things. So
Oh, for
just-
an extended,
yeah.
I was just wondering if there is any extension into the contract, or if there was gonna take longer to do the design.
Any extensions that are required that cost money or time, we'll bring back to council.
Okay.
I'm sorry, to the board.
Okay, no further questions, is there a motion?
Motion to approve?
Okay,
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a couple of seconds. Yes,
The second was over there.
oh, okay. Okay, there's a motion and a second, if no further questions. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, item number 6. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Thank you all so much for being
Thank
here.
you.
We're adjourned.